time, roller coasters have come and gone. Only some become legends for their intensity and thrills. Each and every year, coaster fans like you venture to the parks, searching for that one special ride that stands out above the rest. You submitted your rankings, and now it's time to reveal the group of elite roller coasters that you have voted as the best of the best. COASTER-net Uncut is proud to present the 2019 Thrilling 32.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the first round of the Thrilling 32 Bracket Challenge. I am Danny Miller from Binghamton, New York, alongside Andrew Barczyk from Chicago, Illinois. As always, Andy, the last 2 weeks, hundreds of people submitting brackets. We got over 100 brackets again this year. Another great turnout for the bracket contest. And today, we finally start to reveal who is moving on. We separate the men from the boys a little bit. Get from 32 wood and 32 steel down to 16 wood and 16 steel. We get down to the Sweet 16. We find out who the Sweet 16 are. And a week from today, we'll narrow it down to the Elite 8, so on and so forth, eventually getting to our champion at the beginning of March. What are your thoughts going into the first round here? We had an incredibly tough wood bracket. The submissions are kind of revealing that the wood bracket was really the tough one for people to do this year. So many matchups in the first round here where it was almost 50-50 in what people selected in many of the wood first round matchups. Generally in the steel, a lot of consensus in the first round here. After the first round, it spreads out a little bit more, but a lot of consensus in the steel bracket in the first round matchups. The wood brackets, though, a lot of matchups people were split on among the participants here this year.
Well, it's always difficult to figure out, some of those wood coasters, they move a lot. They move around a lot. We've seen a lot of jockeying, even at the top spots over the last few years. Mm-hmm. So it's hard to really figure out and nail down what wood coasters are going to be at those top spots. The steel. I think the steel. It seems like the consensus amongst many is that Steel Vengeance is the best roller coaster in the world. So
well, I'll tell you what, we're recording this a few days ahead of when you're seeing it. So as of right now, submissions are still open. But I can count on one hand currently, as of right now, we have about 100 brackets in so far as of Monday night, the 28th of January when we're recording this. And I can count on one hand how many people do not have Steel Vengeance winning the steel. So again, a lot of consensus on the steel side of things.
But could be a lot of losers too.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing. And again, I said consensus. That doesn't mean they're all right. They could all be wrong, and maybe just a few people. And again, we've talked about how the last couple of years, the people who have been winning this contest are getting both the wood and the steel right. And I think that's going to be the key here again this year, just because there's so much consensus on the steel side. If everybody has it right and it is Steel Vengeance who eventually wins as we go through this, then it's really going to come down to those who also got the wood right. Because again, not a lot of consensus, a lot of Voyages, a lot of El Toros, Lightning Rods, Wildfires, Outlaw Runs, saw a couple of Beasts in there even, saw some Boulder Dashes, a lot of different predictions for the wood winner. So it's, and if Steel Vengeance isn't the steel winner, then, those few people who do have the steel champion right, that gives them the upper hand. And then if one or two of those has the wood champion right, then, those are the people who are kind of in the catbird seat, if you will. But it's going to be a little while till we find out all of that. We're talking about just the first round tonight. And like you said on the selection show, a lot of times, if you have multiple people who get both champions right, or if nobody gets both champions right, a lot of times the championship can eventually be decided when looking back at this first round, when you get some of the more difficult first round matchups correct.
Absolutely. You can't discount the power of the first round. Like, we do it for a reason. You got to pick those, because sometimes
these individual decisions are the ones that ultimately determine who is going to win the bracket challenge.
Yeah, I mean, in years past, we've had the winners be decided just by a couple of points. And, you know, those winners at the end are worth 16 points if you get the winners at the end. So at the end of the day, when you lose by 1 or 2 points, that's from you getting a few wrong in the first and second rounds that other people got right. So if you do well in this first round here, you're setting yourself up to be in a real good position should you have both champions right. And the fact of the matter is, you gotta have these first round ones right if you want to have the champions right. If your champion gets knocked out in the first round, you're not going anywhere.
Yeah, so that's for sure.
Thought here. So any final thoughts before we jump in?
Let's jump right into it because I'm excited to see which coasters move on to this next round. Because actually, Danny, I don't even know who moves on.
That's right. Unlike years past where you've sort of had an inkling, we talked about this on the selection show. You went in cold this year. You had not seen the bracket beforehand. You saw the bracket for the first time live like everyone else, and you'll be seeing the results here live for the first time. So you will get Andy's uncut reaction. It's uncut, right?
Yeah. Just wait till we get to that beast decision.
Well, I think you see what's coming here. So speaking of the beast and that region, let's jump right into the old Indiana region here. Our first matchup was El Toro versus the Legend. And Andy, I was real surprised. Almost everybody, actually up to this point, everybody selecting El Toro to win this one. I'm surprised that people have, Legend has always gotten a bad rap.
Danny, you're the only guy in the world that thinks Legend is better than El Toro.
I am not the only guy in the world. I can name at least a couple people that think Legend is better than El Toro, but it is El Toro moving on to the second round. I don't think that's a big surprise to people who have watched this poll year after year. So El Toro on its way here to making another run here. El Toro, again, has never won this poll, has never won this contest, but it knocks out Legend in the first round here. Second matchup, Goliath from Six Flags Great America going up against Shivering Timbers from Michigan's Adventure. Another tough one. 2 Midwest wood coasters, one very new school in Goliath, one very old school in Shivering Timbers. I have these two ranked, right around each other. What about you? Which one do you rank higher out of these?
Mine are very close as well. I have Goliath getting the edge ever so slightly over Shivering Timbers. A lot of people have said, even my sister who went up to Michigan's Adventure this year for the first time, even she said that Shivering Timbers has not been well taken care of over the last few seasons, that there's a noticeable roughness to that ride, not running like it used to. So I wonder if that's going to have an impact here on the overall ranking of Shivering Timbers.
Yeah, maybe at the end we'll see where Shivering Timbers ranks, compared to previous years. But it is Goliath moving on to the second round here. So Goliath from Six Flags Great America will take on El Toro from Six Flags Great Adventure in the second round here. Moving on to the next matchup, we've got the Voyage, the defending champion, going up against Hades 360. From Mount Olympus there. The battle of the first 2 Gravity Group wood coasters to be built here. The first 2 big ones there. Not much of a surprise here. Voyage moving on. Hades 360 has historically done fairly well in the end rankings here, but I think it went up against Lightning Rod a few years ago, going up against Voyage this year again. Hades 360 always getting the tough matchups, but historically has ranked pretty well in this tournament. So it'll be interesting to see where Hades 360 comes out at the end. And now the one that I know you're dying to see here, Andy. Rorosaurus in its first ever appearance in the Thrilling 32, taking on the Beast from Kings Island.
Well, I've always said that even the Beast fans don't like the Beast. In theory, I think a lot of people are going to be having the Beast over Rorosaurus. But I'm smelling an upset here, Danny Miller. I think the Beast is taking a dive into the anonymity, into boring, into slumber.
Really?
What happens here? I'm dying to know.
Well, much to maybe some people's surprise, it is the Beast moving on to take on Voyage. Andy, I can see the disappointment on your face, but
but it's going to run into a buzzsaw.
Well, and this happened a couple of years ago where the Beast won in the first round and then got the Voyage in the second round. So we'll see how that goes. But I don't think there's a whole lot of question as to how that one may turn up. And we talked about this on the selection show. El Toro and Voyage right now on that collision course to meet in the Elite Eight right now. They each have one more round to get through. But, we talked about that on the selection show, and so far so good as far as seeing a rematch of last year's championship goes. Shall we move on to the Rocky Glen region here? And this is another one where we see a lot of top 10 coasters, repeat top 10 coasters here. We start with Ravine Flyer 2 at Waldameer, which is taking on Ghost Rider from Knott's Berry Farm. And, again, another one that split the audience, almost 50-50. For many years, I would have had Ravine Flyer 2 a little bit higher, but after rewriting the new Ghost Rider, I think Ghost Rider is the better ride here. What do you think?
Absolutely. I got Ghost Rider as my number 2 wood coaster in the world right now. I absolutely love Ghost Rider. I know awesome. that Ravine Flyer 2, I also call it the poor man's Voyage. Like, come on. I like Ravine Flyer 2. I've never understood the love of that people have for Ravine Flyer 2. I think it's a great ride. I think it's a ton of fun. But people talk about Ravine Flyer 2 like it's the second coming of, I don't even know, whatever great wood coaster there is out there. I don't know.
I don't think it's a top 10 wood coaster anymore. I mean, top 20 maybe, but
it never was. It never was. Like, Voyage was always superior, and people always talked about Ravine Flyer, and I never understood it. But I don't know, like Ghost Rider, I love Ghost Rider. Ghost Rider is a legit roller coaster, does things that coasters just don't do anymore, far better than Ravine Flyer.
I would tend to agree with you. But it is Ravine Flyer 2 that moves on here. And I wonder, we talked about this a little bit on the selection show, I wonder if this isn't still a little bit of the residual of people who rode Ghost Rider 4, 5, 6 years ago who haven't ridden the retracked version yet. I mean, we've seen Ghost Rider slowly climbing in the polls, and we'll see if it did climb again this year, but obviously not high enough to beat Ravine Flyer. I'm interested in another year or two to see if Ghost Rider does maybe have enough legs to keep climbing.
A travesty of justice has just occurred here, Danny Miller.
I would maybe agree with you. I think the wrong coaster won here. But again, it's not about what you think. It's not about what I think. It's about what all the voters think. And according to all the voters, they think Ravine Flyer is a little bit better as a collective. So the next one here, we've got Balder from Liseberg going up against Gold Striker.
Baby.
Yeah, that's right. Gold Striker from California's Great America. I've talked about Gold Striker a lot over the last several years, and having gone back to California's Great America again this year, re-solidified my high praise for Gold Striker. You thought Gold Striker was a good ride, but not an amazing ride. Am I correct?
Not the way you talk about it. You talk about Gold Striker like other people talk about Ravine Flyer. It's a good ride. It's fun. It's exciting.
Well, it's a good thing you don't like wood coasters, so we don't have to take your opinion seriously because it is Gold Striker. Moving on to the next round. So now Andy gets a dream matchup of Ravine Flyer 2 and Gold Striker.
God, that's snooze fest. That's a
okay. Who do you think? Which ride do you think's better out of those two?
I think I have Ravine Flyer right above Gold Striker.
Well, again, Andy's not the wood coaster guy, so we don't have to listen to him. So we could just move on.
Thank God I'm not. Like, good. If I was a wood coaster guy, I'd have to stop riding coasters. Like, what's wrong with people?
Oh boy. Our next matchup here, we've got Renegade from Valley Fair going up against Rampage from Alabama Splash Adventure. You and I talked about this on one of the throwdowns as possibly. We said this was probably the second most difficult first round matchup to pick. The only one more difficult is maybe the one that's coming up next after it because these next two, we talked about both of these. Renegade, Rampage, you got to make a call here. Who's moving on?
I personally have Rampage ranked higher.
I do too.
I don't know. I'm gonna have to say Rampage is moving on.
It is Rampage from Alabama Splash Adventure moving on.
I think that's the right call too. I think
I think so too. Not by a lot, but again, this is another one. Much
I love
like
Renegade, and I it's just at a park that nobody gets. Well, both of them are at parks that people don't get to.
You ain't kidding. Well, and Renegade, I think, Renegade, I think, suffers from, some other GCIs that people like a little bit better, like your Mystic Timbers and your Gold Strikers and your Prowlers. Those rides, I think, are maybe a little bit better than Renegade in most people's opinion. So I think Renegade kind of gets shoved aside, whereas, the CCI rides, the glory days of CCI, I mean, Ghost Rider's been retracked and is sort of kind of a GCI now. I mean, there's not a lot of those old school CCIs from the glory days of CCI that still run as well as they once did. Rampage has really been consistent since it reopened, and they do take good care of it. So Rampage obviously continuing to rank highly here. Maybe the marquee matchup of the Rocky Glen region here in the Wood Coaster bracket, the Phoenix from Knoebels Amusement Resort and Mystic Timbers from Kings Island, another one we talked about on the Throwdown. Extremely difficult. I went through my 131% math there on the Throwdown, trying to give you just an idea of how to maybe approach this one. Again, you got to make a call. Who do you think's moving on?
Man, this one is maybe the toughest pick in the whole game here.
I think so.
This one's so tough because I like Mystic Timbers better. I know people love Phoenix.
I like Phoenix just a little bit better.
Phoenix got poor shake in a lot of matchups, as we saw.
Yes.
Mystic Timbers?
You go Mystic Timbers?
Yeah.
Moving on to face Rampage in the second round of the Rocky Glen region is the Phoenix from Knoebels Amusement Resort. Maybe a surprise to some.
Maybe a Banshee effect, too. We said that. We said, does Mystic Timbers, have a Banshee effect going on?
It could.
I don't know. We'll see.
Well,
Mystic Timbers Final Four coaster last year, too, right?
Yeah, Final Four coaster was number 6 overall, and Phoenix, like we talked about, always in that 5 to 8 range historically. So that means either Phoenix has maybe moved up a little bit, or maybe Mystic Timbers has fallen down a little bit. We'll see in about a month when we get the final rankings. But we know that Phoenix ranked higher than Mystic Timbers. Very, 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 very interesting there. And Phoenix will now take on Rampage in the second round of the Rocky Glen region. All right, so let's move on now to the PIXIELAND region, which was sort of the island of misfit toys region, if you will. Just a lot of coasters that are kind of out of the way. Oscar's Wacky Taxi being a new ride, both Silverwood coasters, the coaster from P&E in this region, the Pacific Northwest coasters, a German wood coaster in there. A lot of small park rides here. The first matchup, the coaster from P&E going up against Timber Terror from Silverwood in its first appearance in the Thrilling 32. What are your thoughts on this one?
I think Coaster, just from what you said on the Road Trip Rundown shows, you were raving about Coaster. Timber Terror you liked, but there wasn't a whole lot of excitement there. I think for the most part,
good ride, not a great ride. Too.
Yeah, so Coaster at P&E, this whole round should have been pretty easy. This region to pick.
Yeah, it is the coaster from P&E Playland there in Vancouver. Moving on, wow, what a magnificent ride that is. Built in the 1950s, they're still going strong. The coaster, I'll be honest with you, if you want to go find a surprise coaster that will just surprise the living hell out of you, Coaster is one of the most surprising coasters that I've ridden in quite some time. I would maybe even put a Time Traveler in there as to surprising as how much fun it was. That's sort of maybe the comparison I would, and that's a compliment to the coaster at P&E. Moving on, we've got Oscar's Wacky Taxi from Sesame Place going up against Prowler.
Prowler.
Fun. And you immediately at this selection show said, Prowler can finally win a game.
Prowler.
But, you know, Oscar's Wacky Taxi got a lot of good reviews this year. A lot of people enjoying it. But it is Prowler moving on to the second round to take on the
anyone who got that one wrong should be automatically disqualified.
Wow. And so, you know, I don't think that should be a very big surprise to see Prowler moving on.
I'm still shocked that Wacky Taxi's even in this.
You know what? It's
absolutely shocked.
It's going to be very, very interesting now with Prowler versus Coaster. We've got a ride that virtually no one has ridden, very few people have ridden, but those who have rank it very highly. And then a ride in Prowler that a lot of people have ridden and a lot of people, you know, really like, but maybe don't absolutely love. It'll be interesting to see where, you know, which one comes out on top there in the next round and how that balances out. Next up, we've got Vodon Timber Coaster from Europa Park going up against Boulder Dash from Lake Compounce in Bristol, Connecticut. You know, obviously neither of us have ridden Vodon. I'll use this opportunity to tell Rob Dole that Vodon I might ride on my trip coming up. Got to throw that in here.
Yep, he always likes to know because he sometimes forgets.
He always forgets, so we got to remind him. And Boulder Dash, a ride that, you know, I haven't heard quite as many people talking about in recent years. Is Boulder Dash maybe on a slide here?
I hope so, but I don't think it's going to slide that far.
It is Boulder Dash moving on to the second round here. So, you know, I don't think that's a big surprise here. Vodon has really never had the legs to really, you know, go deep in this tournament. It's always been in there, but it's never really gone deep. So
I would say the European wood coasters on the whole, that's the story of the European. And maybe Wicker Man is the exception, although I haven't really heard that. We don't see it here. You know, I just don't hear a whole lot of great things about European wood coasters in general.
Yeah, and you know, and honestly, Vodon is not the one that I hear the most, you know, good things about in terms of wood coasters over there. Some of them are ones that are on the itinerary for our trip. You know, you've got the you've got Balder, and then you know, Wildfire, which is coming up here in the next region that people talk about in Sweden. But then you've got rides like Colossus at Hyde Park. You've got Troy at Toverland, which is also coming up here that people talk very highly of. Those are the ones that I hear the most about over there. So, you know, Boulder Dash moving on, and it will take on the winner of Tremors, the other Silverwood coaster, going up against American Thunder from Six Flags St. Louis. You are not an American Thunder fan.
I have filed this matchup under I don't care.
Yeah. Well, I would say this. I would say if you took Legend or Rampage, or it's really more, the layout is much more like Rampage. If you took Rampage and maybe tamed it down just a bit, that's kind of what Tremors is. Tremors is a slightly tamer version of Rampage, slightly more spread out. A very good ride, in my opinion. You know, I think I actually have these two ranked very similarly. You know, I enjoy American Thunder, not one of my favorite GCIs, but a good ride. It is Tremors moving on here to the second round to take on Boulder Dash. So we will see two CCI coasters from those glory days. Here I was talking about how we don't have many CCIs from the glory days that are running well like Rampage, and here we've got Boulder Dash and Tremors gonna go up against one another in the second round here in the PIXIELAND region. Any surprises to you in this region? Probably not, right?
No, this was one of the easier regions to pick in the whole tournament, I think.
Even though there maybe wasn't, you know, that go pick that one to go to the Final Four jumping out at you right away. You know, the matchups in this first round anyway, you know, should have been fairly easy, I would think.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to the final region here in the Wood Coasters. And it is the Celebration City region. And we start with another one that we talked about on one of our throwdowns here, the Raven from Holiday World going up against Mind Blower from Fun Spot Kissimmee. So the Voyage has already won. The Legend has already lost. So will Raven make it 2 for 3 for Holiday World, or will Mind Blower win a game in its first appearance?
I've been watching the comments on the throwdown.
This has been one of the most highly commented throwdowns of all the ones we did. People have been very vocal about this matchup.
And it seems to be a lot of people like Mind Blower. A lot of people have these two rides real close to each other. And a lot of people like Mind Blower better, but think that Raven has the pedigree to go further in this tournament.
That's interesting because we don't see that a lot where the majority of people like a ride better, but then they don't pick it. Usually, you know, they tend to, you know, vote with their feet, right? As Rob Decker says. I mean, but so many people have been saying, I think Mind Blower's better, but I think Raven will win.
I don't think it's any contest. I think Raven is far superior. I don't get the Mind Blower phenomenon. I just don't.
I think Mind Blower is a very good ride, but I still think that Raven is the better ride, especially that night ride experience is really something to brag about that Raven has. I mean,
I can understand if you've never ridden Raven at night, and I do say all the time, you know, you shouldn't, you know, rank a coaster just because you can only ride it that way once a year at, you know, Hollywood Night.
Right.
And that's hard to do, but it's hard not to rank Raven that way because it's such a good ride.
Well, yeah, it's, I mean, and you know, I think all the rides at Holiday World are like that, and a lot of wood coasters that are in that sort of setting. You know, the Beast. I mean, the ride between the day ride and the night ride on Beast, you know, is quite a bit different.
Beast day rides, tournament of terrible.
Yeah, Beast day rides. That might be a candidate there. So moving on to the second round is Mind Blower from Fun Spot Kissimmee. Mind Blower. So
that's gonna blow some minds.
Well, seriously, I mean, I got my mind blown. But I mean, seriously. So it's very interesting. All these people saying I like Mind Blower better, but I think Raven's gonna win. You should have looked at all the people that were saying they liked Mind Blower better because that's how they voted. Mind Blower's movie.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting here to see Mind Blower. So Mind Blower was number 33 last year. It was the first one out of the bracket this year. So we know it's not number 32 this year. It's at least number 31 because it's beating Raven here. You know, we'll see eventually how high it went. Mind Blower for now. Moving on. Next up, we've got Outlaw Run from Silver Dollar City going up against the Boardwalk Bullet from Kima Boardwalk. Now, Boardwalk Bullet was another very surprising ride to me. You know, right on the edge of my top 10, not far below Outlaw Run. The way that I describe Boardwalk Bullet is it's as if Gravity Group looked at a GCI coaster and tried to build one, because it's got a lot of GCI types of elements in it. It's got a lot of GCI type airtime, but it was built by Gravity Group, and it's got the laterals of the old school CCI in it. You know, if you were to combine new school Gravity Group and new school GCI, Boardwalk Bullet is kind of what you get. And then Outlaw Run is just a whole different animal from that altogether.
Yeah, I don't see Boardwalk Bullet having any chance at this one. Outlaw Run. Too many people have been on it. Too many people love it. Some people have it ranked number 1 still. There's no way.
Well, and again, Outlaw Run was my prediction to go to the Final Four from this region anyway. And it is Outlaw Run. Moving on. Not much of a surprise really here. And again, this is one of the few where there was a lot of consensus. Most, if not all, of the people selecting Outlaw Run to move on here. I don't think that's, you know, too terrible of a surprise.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we've got our European battle here going on in the Celebration City region. We've got Troy from Toverland and Wildfire from Colmartin, two rides we touched on a little bit earlier here. Wildfire did very, very well last year. Is it going to go up? Is it going to go down? More people have ridden it. You know, this is kind of a toss-up here when you're talking about 2 European rides.
Well, you know, the thing is we know Wildfire did well. And the fact that Wildfire, you know, is in this tournament, is listed, I think that means something. And I feel that this is not the contest for Wildfire. I think the next round is more where Wildfire is more of a question mark. No doubt it's moving on here.
Yeah, it is Wildfire moving on to the second round here. And all of a sudden, you know, that RMC storyline that we talked about is starting to materialize a little bit here in this Celebration City region. Our last matchup is Thunderhead and Lightning Rod, the battle of the Dollywood coasters. And
no contest.
This one not very close at all. Lightning Rod moving on to the next round here. So we will see all 3 of the RMCs move on in the Celebration City region. So we'll see Mind Blower and Outlaw Run go at it. And then possibly the matchup of the second round, Wildfire and lightning rod. Generally speaking, what people say is the best U.S. RMC going up against what people say is the best non-U.S. RMC. There's a lot fewer to consider there, but maybe they'll settle it once and for all here. I think it's safe to say the winner of that one has potential to do very, very well, save for maybe Outlaw Run spoiling the party.
Well, it's gonna be real interesting, and I think on the whole, this first round of the Wood, I think on the whole, if you use some real common sense, use history as your guide, I think this whole first round was pretty easy, outside of maybe a couple of matchups here or there.
4 or 5 really, really tough ones, and then the other 10 or 11, should have been pretty easy. But I think moving forward now, like we said, we've kind of knocked out a lot of the junk here.
Yeah. Now it becomes more of a contest, I believe.
Yeah. You said in the selection show that you were impressed with how little garbage there was compared to previous years, and what little garbage it was in the bracket. We've kind of knocked all that out now. So,
really, definitely the Wood side had more. When I say garbage, there's still good rides, obviously.
Right.
But rides that don't have a shot here. That when you look at the Royal Rumble and you hear Kurt Hawkins running down to the ring, yeah, anything can happen, but he's probably not going to win. So let's call it a day.
That's right. Any other thoughts on the Wood bracket before we move on to Steel?
Well, like I said, I think we're finally getting to the point where real decisions have to be made. This next round, this Sweet 16, is not an easy one. And I really believe that now we're going to start talking about, who's going to win this bracket challenge based on how you picked.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right there. So why don't we move on to the Steel bracket now? We'll move to the Camelot region, the Camelot theme park region. And our first matchup, Intimidator 305 from King's Dominion going up against Silver Star from Europa Park, a ride that, we said very surprising that it got in over a lot of other B&M hypers like Diamondback, Intimidator, Apollo's Chariot, Nitro. None of those rides in, but Silver Star still getting in. However, Intimidator 305, moving on here, not much of a surprise here. I don't think a single person picked Silver Star, at least not as of our recording right now. Again, a lot of consensus on this one. That one, not really a hard one to pick if you've looked at our history here. The Battle of the UK coming up here. The Ultimate from Lightwater Valley going up against Nemesis from Alton Towers. The Ultimate making its first appearance in the Thrilling 32, a ride I thought might get in last year. It didn't, and then when it got in this year, I was pleasantly surprised to see that it got in, because I think the Ultimate is deserving of being in this conversation. I think the Ultimate is a great ride. However, I've expressed my love for Nemesis many times. This is a tough one for you maybe to really have too many thoughts on, I guess, just because you haven't ridden either of them. But, I know Nemesis is the British cousin of Raptor.
Yeah, British Raptor. How can you beat British Raptor? Like, come on.
Well, the Ultimate is not beating British Raptor. It is Nemesis moving on to the second round. And all of a sudden we talked about the potential of the second round having a lot of rides that were formerly top fours or current top fours. We're 2 for 2 so far.
You have a verifiable Final Four in the second round here.
Yes, you very well could, and it doesn't get any easier because on the next one we've got Expedition G-Force, a former champion going up against Millennium Force from Cedar Point. The battle of the turn-of-the-century Intamins, this was the discussion and the debate in the Golden Tickets for many, many years as to the American King and Millennium Force, the European King and Expedition G-Force. Your thoughts?
No real debate within this tournament. We've always seen Expedition G-Force be ranked very high. Like we said, Millennium Force not usually ranked highly in this, in this poll. So Expedition G-Force,
usually top 10 or so, but really has not solidified in the top 5 over the years here. And it is Expedition G-Force moving on. So, I think maybe if you're an Expedition G-Force fan and maybe have Expedition G-Force going deep here, maybe this one scared you a little bit, but, it's moving on past Millennium Force, so you probably feel a little bit better about it now. But, Andy, I don't know if there's a reason to feel any better about it right now because Wicked Cyclone from Six Flags New England and Maverick from Cedar Point. Maverick, again, is the top 4 at one point in history here. I think it was number 6 last year. So, is this one a contest, do you think? No. Is there an upset looming here?
No?
Not
at all. Not a chance.
No. Maverick is moving on to the Sweet 16. So, Andy, we talked about
now you got something.
We've got 4 rides in the Camelot region in the second round that have all, at least once, been in the top 4 at one point or another in this tournament, and 2 former champions in I-305 and Expedition G-Force.
Good luck.
Sitting here right now, I want your prediction as to which 2 rides will move on to the Elite 8 right now. I want you to pick those 2 right now. What do you think?
I don't think Nemesis has the legs this year. I think I-305 has been one of those perennial favorites, one of those quiet favorites.
Yeah.
That a lot of people still rank very highly. A lot of people still have I-305 as their number 1. Even I do not. And then that Expedition G-Force Maverick.
That other one, man.
Oh, man, my heart says Maverick, my brain says Expedition G-Force. Oh, man. I'll tell you what, I feel sorry for anyone who likes Expedition G-Force better than Maverick, but because Maverick, oh God, I think G-Force moves up. Yeah.
All right. You know what? I'll take Maverick. I'll tell
you what, either way.
You can't go wrong either way.
Yeah, either way, going up against I-305, that's another tough matchup. Man, this is a tough region. Once you get out of this first round, this is a tough region. Oh,
well, and again, this is following the same, path as maybe the Wood, where I think a lot of people pick those 4 rides to move on, but boy, good luck with how you picked them in the second and third rounds, huh?
Yeah, seriously. Oh God, that's.
All right, let's move on to the Andy Rybarczyk region. It's the Boardwalk and Baseball region.
Yes.
And our first matchup is another one we talked about on our throwdowns. The Smiler from Alton Towers going up against Time Traveler from Silver Dollar City. And, we found lots of comparisons and lots of differences between these rides.
Man, I almost ranked Time Traveler lower because of those stairs. You got to walk up, you got to walk down, you got to walk up. God. Good Lord. Oh,
yeah. I mean, when you get up there to Time Traveler, you're really glad that you can sit down for a few.
Seriously, right? This one was real tough to me. And after the throwdown, I kind of sat down and I kind of thought about it. I feel like Time Traveler is moving on.
And, this makes it even tougher that Time Traveler is a new ride.
Yes.
If Time Traveler had been a couple years old and it hadn't been in the bracket before and it first got in, maybe you're thinking Smiler because Smiler was in last year and Smiler was in the teens last year. But Time Traveler being a brand new ride, you don't know where it was. And that's the challenge with so many new for 2018 rides in the bracket this year. Again, we got another one in this region coming up in Twisted Cyclone. You don't know where it is at all. You have no groundwork here to go off of here. Moving on is the Smiler from Alton Towers. So Smiler moving on to the second round here. Again, this was one very, very indecisive in terms of the submissions here, almost a 50-50 split again. We don't have the final numbers in front of us because as of recording, we're still taking brackets here. But again, from the ones so far, almost a 50-50 split. Real tough one here.
That's a heartbreaker there. Time Traveler, I think, is a really good ride. Smiler, like you said, in the teens, so just did not have the legs there.
No, it did not. One that maybe not so difficult here: Fury 325 from Carowinds and Steel Dragon 2000 from Nagashima Spa Land. Steel Dragon 2000 was maybe the big surprise that it got into the bracket this year. But it should not be a big surprise that Fury 325 is the one moving on here. The defending champion is off and running again.
Even Furry 325 is probably
even
better.
Furry 325 was still had more picks than Steel Dragon 2000. I think there was 3 or 4 people that picked Furry 325. Fuzzy roller coasters are always very popular with some. So Fury 325 looking to become the first ever repeat champion in this tournament here. The next one here, another one that we talked about on the Thrilling 32 Throwdowns, Helix from Lisaberg going up against Skyrush from Hershey Park. And again, we talked about, the balance and how Helix, people talk about maybe not overly forceful, maybe a somewhat tame ride, but then Skyrush maybe being a bit too intense for some people who don't like the restraints. Really talking about the balance here. Helix did very well last year. Skyrush has done very well in previous years, but other years it hasn't. What do you think the outcome is?
Skyrush is just one of those coasters that you either love it or you hate it. Helix pretty even keel across the board. So I got to say Helix is going to move on.
Skyrush just doesn't seem like the ride that – it seems like a ride that a lot of people love, but in this tournament, it's not one that you can trust year over year. Mm-hmm. And, again, Helix from Leesburg is moving on to the second round here in the Boardwalk and Baseball region. All right. Let's move on to the last matchup here. We've got another 2018 ride, Twisted Cyclone from Six Flags Over Georgia, going up against Behemoth from Canada's Wonderland. Now, I'm going to have to defer to you on this one because Twisted Cyclone is one of the only 2018 rides that I did not get to ride. Hoping to get down there in the spring this year, but I'm going to have to defer to you on this one because, unlike me, you have ridden both of these.
I'll tell you what, Twisted Cyclone is definitely... I think it's a great ride. That wave turn that they do in the middle, you get some major, pop out of that. The stuff it does it's just a fun ride throughout. A lot of people, though, criticize its length. We always talk about that. Mm-hmm. Behemoth is a solid ride from top to bottom. I have both of these rides right next to each other. To be honest with you, I can't even tell you which one I rank higher currently.
I'm a big Behemoth fan. I mean, it would be tough. It would be surprising to me if I would rank Twisted Cyclone as high as I rank Behemoth. But
I think that's the general consensus amongst. I don't think a whole lot of people got down to Twisted Cyclone. 2, I think there is a mixed bagged opinion about it. Behemoth seems to be universally liked amongst most people. So I got to say Behemoth is probably moving on here, even though I'd love to see Twisted Cyclone move on.
Yeah, it's Behemoth moving on from Canada's Wonderland. Again, this was another one that a lot of people, had differing opinions on. A very split decision here again on people predicting this one. But Behemoth did rank higher this year, so Behemoth is moving on to take on Helix. How about this? All of a sudden, in the Boardwalk and Baseball region, we've got 3 non-U.S. coasters here. One from Canada, one from Sweden, one from England. So we've kind of got a nice mix here in this region here.
Yeah, for sure. There's something there. I don't think who's coming out of that region's in question though. So.
Maybe not. All right, so let's move on to the NARA Dreamland region, and this is sort of the RMC, the Alan Schilke region, if you will, a little bit here. Our first matchup is Mako from SeaWorld Orlando going up against Asia Nika from Fuji-Q Highland.
I think Asia Nika looks like I love the 4D coasters. I think it's fantastic.
Oh, yeah. If it's anything like X2, it's got to be one of the greatest rides out there, right?
Seriously, I love X2, but Mako, people are raving about Mako over and over. Mako's a great ride. I think it's fantastic. Do I think it's the best B&M Hyper? Not by a long shot, but people love Mako, so I think Mako has the easy win here.
It is Mako moving on from SeaWorld Orlando. And, that's one of the things about our poll. If there's something you can rely on, it's, Mako, holding strong there. The last couple of years have proven that Mako is well liked by our voters and, is always good for a win or two here. Next up, we've got Superman the Ride from Six Flags New England going up against.
Upset. Are we burning brackets here, Danny?
Are we? I don't know. I mean, Superman the Ride, a previous champion, a perennial top 10, top 5 in some years. You know, if Steel Vengeance is going to win this matchup, it's going to have to be in the top 5. Is Steel Vengeance in the top 5? Do you think? Is it that high already? What do you think here?
Superman the Ride's a joke. Like, God.
What a surprise! It is Steel Vengeance moving on to the second round here, and I say that with the sincerest amount of sarcasm.
Yeah.
Steel Vengeance moving on to take on Mako in the second round of the NARA Dreamland region. Truly, shouldn't be a big surprise for people who rode Steel Vengeance this year. An incredible ride. And strap in. We'll see how far Steel Vengeance goes. It's not an easy road. It's gonna have to beat a lot of good coasters if it's gonna go all the way. But it's past the first test in a former champion. And there will surely be at least one or two others along the way if it's gonna go all the way. So let's take a look at the other half of this region here. A battle of RMCs, a newer RMCs too, the Joker from Six Flags Discovery Kingdom and Twisted Timbers from King's Dominion. Andy, I was surprised at the overwhelming majority of people that selected Twisted Timbers to win this one. Nobody giving Joker any credit here in the predictions in the brackets.
Rightfully so, though. Like Joker's a
not disagreeing. Twisted Timbers, I think, is the better ride, but I'm
just saying, just on the merits of Joker, I think Joker's a good ride, but it just lacks something. It's the only reason. Being that's a GCI conversion, it's the only thing that gives me pause about Gwazi's conversion. That I thought Joker's conversion was so ho-hum. Now you have a different opinion of it. I just thought Joker was an average RMC at best. Twisted,
it's a middle of the road one.
A ton of fun compared to Joker. So much better. Twisted Timbers was not even a question.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I don't think Joker's the better ride. I'm a little bit surprised that almost nobody selected Joker to win this one. Even the West Coast people, who are probably favor Joker are selecting Twisted Timbers to move on here. But like you said, rightfully so, it is Twisted Timbers moving on to the second round here. And I don't think that's the wrong choice. I think that is definitely the right choice. Twisted Timbers is the better ride. Twisted Timbers is one of the better iron horses. A Joker is maybe a middle of the pack one. So I think this is the right decision. I'm just surprised that it was just so overwhelming how many people selected Twisted Timbers.
That doesn't surprise me at all because it just doesn't. Twisted Timbers is that.
Maybe the people are finally getting smart, Andy.
It's about time, right? Like we've just through YouTube comments, we've driven away all the idiots. So
well, we've driven away a lot of them. Our final matchup here is another Japanese coaster, Flying Dinosaur from Universal Studios Japan, going up against Iron Rattler from Six Flags Fiesta Texas. A flying dinosaur and a snake. Certainly one of the most intriguing first-round matchups because you've got two rides that are literally nothing alike.
Yeah, and I would love to see Flying Dinosaur do well here. I just know Iron Rattler is a top 10 roller coaster for me. It's a top 10 roller coaster for a lot of people. Top 10, a lot of people down in Texas love it. Our friends at Texas Thrill Seekers love Iron Rattler. So Iron Rattler, as much as I think Flying Dinosaur may be one of the most intriguing roller coasters that I have not been on yet.
Agreed.
I still think Iron Rattler wins.
It is Iron Rattler moving on. And
now we have a real test for Twisted Timbers.
Yes, we do. Because Iron Rattler and Twisted Timbers are definitely two of the better RMCs. In my personal opinion, I would argue that maybe they're the two best ones after Steel Vengeance. Personally, I would throw Wicked Cyclone into that mix as well. I know you would not. But I think very realistically, personally, people know where you and I stand on Steel Vengeance from the media day and all the coverage we did that. People know where you and I
stand. Detroit News.
What's that?
From the Detroit News.
Yes, the Detroit News, our friends up there at ABC Detroit there. We had a great time with them that morning. So people know where you and I stand on Steel Vengeance. And let's talk about just you and me for a second here, and not hundreds and hundreds of voters here. Twisted Timbers and Iron Rattler, is that the battle for second best Iron Horse?
I love Twisted Timbers. I still love Iron Rattler a lot more. I have Iron Rattler in my top 10. Twisted Timbers right outside of my top 10.
And I'm the other way. I have Twisted Timbers, I think, just outside my top 10, and Iron Rattler. I think Twisted Timbers is like 11 or 12, and then Iron Rattler is like 13, 14, 15.
My distinction is a little bit more pronounced, not by a whole lot, though. I give Iron Rattler the edge. You give Twisted Timbers the edge, so we're going to find out.
That's gonna be a good one to see how that one materializes here, and to see which one will. I mean, let's be honest here. Probably which one's going to go up against Steel Vengeance, and again, look at the storylines materializing here. Again, we could maybe see the Steel Vengeance Twisted Timbers debate settled in the next round, potentially.
Well, that's not much of a debate.
Well, a lot of people liked to have that debate for whatever reason.
Well, I don't know why. A lot of people like to waste my time, apparently.
Well, there you go. So why don't we move on to the final region of the day here? We've got the Neverland region. And, this is sort of we've got some West Coast rides in here as well. First matchup is New Texas Giant from Six Flags Over Texas going up against Terran from Phantasialand.
No contest once. Terran is obvious. Like, Terran is like the golden child of Europe right now. Like, everyone in Europe loves Terran. And New Texas Giant, like,
It is Terran moving on from Phantasialand to the second round. And based on last year's results, that shouldn't be a huge surprise. I think Terran did very, very well last year, and so far it looks like it's poised to do very, very well again this year. Next up, we've got probably one of the more difficult decisions to make in the steel bracket in the first round. We've got Leviathan from Canada's Wonderland and Twisted Colossus from Six Flags Magic Mountain. Again, this is one of the ones that it was a very, very split.
Danny, how can you compare some coasters that are so unlike?
Oh, Andy, why do we even bother? Why do we even bother?
How can you compare two coasters like this? Actually, the answer is quite easily. Twisted Colossus is the better of the two. There you go. I said it.
Well, there you go. And
like that.
I like Leviathan a little bit better personally, but
I do too. But Twisted Colossus has its fanboys, has its
has always done very well in this poll.
Leviathan's on a downward slide ever since Fury. So there you go.
No, that's a very good point. So the California Coaster Boys can shut me up for at least one round here, because Twisted Colossus is moving on. It knocks off Leviathan. So now Twisted Colossus and Terran will go head-to-head. Two top 10 coasters from last year. So all of a sudden, this bracket is becoming very interesting too. All of a sudden, because now we go down to X2 from Six Flags Magic Mountain and Goliath from Six Flags Over Georgia. This is one that you and I have talked about quite a bit off the air, and I got to ride X2 again this year, and once again rediscovered the love for X2. X2, in my mind, could be a top 10 steel coaster. Should be.
Is absolutely a top 10 steel coaster. It could be a top 5 steel coaster. I think it is in mine.
Yeah.
X2 is a fantastic ride, and it's now partnered up here with what I think to be is by far the best B&M hyper coaster. Goliath, I just rode that this past season when I went down to Twisted Cyclone, and I'll tell you what, a few years ago I rode it. It was a little sluggish. This past trip with being the opening of the season and stuff, it was running like a knife through butter. It was so smooth, so fast, just a fantastic hyper coaster. Far better than anything else I've been on. From start to finish, there's not a bad part on Goliath. See, the thing I have with Mako is once you hit the brake run on Mako, the ride's pretty much over. You just do a little bunch of other crap that doesn't really do much for you. Goliath, from start to finish, the hills at the beginning, that turnaround, that's absolutely amazing. Coming back with the bunny hills, even into the brake run, you get airtime into the brake run. It doesn't stop until you physically stop. So Goliath, I don't understand why this ride is not ranked in everyone's top 10. Like, I just
Goliath is a great ride. However, X2 is better.
Yeah,
X2 is moving on to the second round here. That was a nice soapbox you got on about Goliath, but it doesn't matter because X2 is rightfully the winner of this one.
Yeah, and X2 is the better ride. I just wanted to talk about Goliath. So
no, Goliath is a great ride.
Because everyone raves about Mako, and I'm like, there's a better coaster 6 hours to the north.
All right, if you say so. Actually, I would have to look at my rankings. I don't know which one I have. I think I have them right next to each other. I don't know which one. They do a lot of similar things.
But it's a complete ride. Mako's after the brake run.
What do you mean Goliath is a complete ride? Goliath doesn't have a mid-course brake run.
Well, it doesn't need one. It just falls to the wall from start.
Goliath doesn't have the Leviathan speed hill, Andy.
Well, if it did,
you would do that whole face from 4 years ago. Iron Rattler with Leviathan speed hill.
Oh my God! You just taught you.
That would be a damn good ride. I believe you.
I'll tell you what.
I remember saying to get sidetracked here for the last one. I remember saying that would be a great ride. You said that would be a damn good ride.
We need to start. It'd be a fun game to start bastardizing coasters to make better coasters.
I'll tell you what. Maybe that's what we got to do here. Instead of roller coaster roulette, maybe we got to start doing roller coaster matchups,
like roller coaster Legos. Maybe that's.
Oh yeah, right. What would be better, Iron Rattler with Leviathan Speed Hill, or Ghost Rider with Voyages Triple Down?
Oh my God.
Oh boy, that would be something. All right, last matchup of the night here. We've got Montu from Busch Gardens Tampa going up against Phantom's Revenge from Kennywood. Maybe two in terms of all the other coasters in the bracket here. Maybe two that you kind of forget about that get in here. They're sort of just there.
However, Phantom's Revenge always does fairly well in this poll.
Beat Millennium Force one year.
Beat Millennium Force. I feel like Montu, though, is the last coaster hanging on to that ledge when all the others have fallen off, the Diamondbacks, the Banshees, the Apollos. Montu's still hanging on. But I don't feel like it's hanging on by much here, Danny Miller.
It is Phantom's Revenge moving on here. And I got to ride Montu back in the fall again. You know that I love Montu. You and I both love Kumba. The glory days of B&M there.
Montu, that beautiful blue coaster.
Yeah, well, there you go. There is no doubt that Phantom's Revenge is certainly green.
That's true.
Phantom's Revenge moving on to take on X2. And Andy, let me just say this. The Outlaw Run prediction I made for the Final Four, still alive.
Yeah. And
the X2 Twisted Colossus matchup that I predicted for the Final Four, still alive.
Could very well happen there, too.
Yeah, so any final thoughts on either of the brackets before we sign off for this week and leave people to mill over their selections?
Just like the wood, I think things were a little tougher here in the steel, I think. I think generally speaking,
I think the steel first round might have been a little bit tougher, but from here on out, I think the wood is a little bit
I think both of them are still like if you discount the obvious winners, it's still going to be a tough route to get there. Even in this round, with the Terrans and the Twisted Colossuses, there's a lot of big question marks still here. So some interesting matchups, ones that I think we'll talk about a little bit more in the coming week as we do some more throwdowns. But I think we're getting into the challenging part of this contest at this point.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, by the the end of the first round here, you've kind of set yourself up for success, or you haven't, and then the second round will really sort of decide whether or not you were along the right track for the long haul, or if maybe you got some of the first ones right and then kind of faltered.
But I will say, I don't think there was a lot of issues here in this first round that would cause people to start burning brackets.
I don't think so, because I think you're right about that, because I think any of the rides that you could have potentially selected as a champion, there weren't any real. I mean, the only one maybe I think is Phoenix Mystic Timbers. I think that's the only matchup where you had maybe a ride that maybe you really like to go to the Final Four or the championship, that might have gotten knocked out there. If you had Mystic Timbers going pretty deep, maybe that's the one that you're sort of scratching off right away. Everyone else, all the perennial favorites, as we like to say, are really still in play. We didn't see your Outlaw Runs and El Toros in the first round. We've got some of those potentially coming up here in the next round or two. We've got Lightning Rod and Wildfire. I think those are two contenders to win it all. Those are going head to head, and then the winner of that potentially taking on Outlaw Run the following round. So a lot of that is coming, but we haven't seen a whole lot of it just yet.
So, as always, folks, thank you for joining us here on the first round of the Thrilling 32. We have a lot of surprises left here, I think, in this tournament. Also, it'll be exciting to see who eventually wins this bracket challenge. And also, just announced in various locations, especially in our Facebook group and on our Patreon, there will be Thrilling 32 T-shirts this year.
That's right.
So that's
right. You did a real nice job designing those. I
will have to say our good friend Jeff Goodman as well had a heavy hand in the design process as well. I came up with the general idea. He came up with the actual design. So that was actually really cool of him to do. So I think they're going to look pretty sweet.
Yeah, they're going to look really cool. I mean, you kind of came up with the idea, and then Jeff really made it happen there. So they're going to look great. They will have this year's winners on them.
And they will be highly limited. We're only looking at maybe buying 20 to 25 here. So if you are interested, you should.
And you can already tick 2 off of that total, because you and I will both be getting them. So a lot to be excited about there. And also, we want to thank the people who not only supported the poll this year, but also who supported the bracket contest. We had Coaster Radio and Coaster Studios helping us out there, and we also had a couple other people. Texas Thrill Seekers posted out about the bracket challenge here. So we want to thank all those folks who, I know the guys over at In the Loop have been talking about this, occasionally as well. So, we want to thank all of our friends who have helped make this poll grow, and also this bracket contest grow. Because, we say this, we dragged the voting out for 2 months, and then the selection show and the bracket and everything, we dragged that out for a month and a half, because this is one of our favorite things that we do all year, and we like to kill some time in the off season talking about a lot of good roller coasters here. So.
Absolutely. So as always, I am Andrew Marchek from Chicago, Illinois.
I'm Danny Miller from Binghamton, New York.
Right on, Ride Warriors.
Thanks, guys. See you next time.